words about this because reflexes are important. We have talked about reflexes, we've talked about the visual reflexes. Where do we have visual reflexes? Yes, in the corpora quadragemina, and specifically what part of it? The superior colliculi. And in the inferior colliculi, what reflexes do we have there? Auditory. We've talked about reflexes in the medulla that just keep us alive, things like the respiratory center, the cardiovascular center. So we have a bunch of reflexes there. So we know that a reflex is something that gives us a quick reaction time. I think we all know that because we hear the word a lot. I think everyone knows that's the idea of a reflex. But this happens, it's a quick reaction time because there's not very many neurons involved. So the fewer synapses, the fewer neurons involved will give us a quicker response. And these can protect us from tissue damage, like you touch something hot, you pull your hand away, that's a reflex. They can maintain homeostasis, like the ones that are in the medulla that maintain heart rate and blood pressure. They can also help to just maintain posture and keep an optimal length in our muscles for a strong contraction. Okay, so that type of reflex is something that you've all had tested before when you have your tendon tapped with a reflex hammer and your leg kicks out. That's actually this type of reflex. And those are designed to kind of make sure that the muscle is, when it's stretched, we have a reflex contraction, just so the muscles kind of maintain that optimal length so they can generate a strong contraction. Also, reflexes can involve just one synapse or more than one, so they can be monosynaptic or polysynaptic. Obviously, the fewer synapses there are, the quicker the reaction time. Okay, and then this is just showing what is called a reflex arc. Okay, and this is called an arc because it forms like a complete circuit from the sensory receptor going into the spinal cord, or it could involve the brainstem, and then coming back out to, the muscle, which is the what causes the response. So I just wanted to go over this with you just so you're kind of, you know this stuff. This will not be on the test, okay? And this is kind of, I think, if you think about what we were just looking at here, this reflex arc, this makes sense that it has these 5 parts. There has to be some kind of sensory receptor. There has to be a sensory neuron that takes the information in. And the spinal cord or the brain, wherever it happens to be connecting, is called the integration center. It's just somewhere in the CNS. Then there has to be a motor neuron that will give us a response. And the muscle, or it could be a gland, is called the effector. And I say gland because we do have reflexes that involve our glands, right? Like when we salivate, when we start smelling or seeing food and we're hungry and we get that watery feeling in the mouth, that's a reflex. Or when you get something in your eye that irritates the eye and your eye becomes watery, you get more tear secretion, that's a reflex. So these are what are called that's just the 5 parts of a reflex arc. And this is showing a couple different types of reflexes. So this is the one I was mentioning earlier when we have our tendon tapped here with a reflex hammer. What that really does is it stretches the muscle. And so there's a response to that. And notice that the sensory neuron that's coming from the muscle synapses directly on a motor neuron that goes out to the same muscle, causing it to contract. So what this is really for is it helps to maintain posture, it helps to keep us from kind of just collapsing, and it also keeps the muscle at a good length for a contraction. Okay, you guys know that if we stretch our sarcomeres out too much, then the myofilaments can't connect, and so the muscle can't contract. So this helps to kind of bring the muscle back to a better length for contraction. And it's called a stretch reflex. So that's really what the doctor is testing when they tap the tendon. This can actually be tested in any muscle where you can access the tendon anywhere. You'll get a little reflex. And you guys will probably be doing that when you take physiology. And this is just showing the same type of reflex we looked at before, where something irritates the skin and we pull that body part away. That's called a withdrawal reflex. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of run through that with you. Again, that will not be on the test, okay? So you can skip reflexes, just these reflexes, okay? You still need to know the ones that are in the medulla and the corpora quadragemina that we talked about before. Okay, so you guys have any questions on that? You'll talk about them more when you take physiology. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the autonomic nervous system